Here's my thing. If we really want to talk about public safety, healthcare is public safety, housing is public safety, good, healthy food is public safety, right? These things that people usually commit crimes of desperation and opportunity for is because they're trying to keep themselves from dying. If that's the case, then why not make it so that they won't have to do these things in the first place? I see homeboys out there on the side of the street selling twinkle twinkle on the street corner when in reality they should not have to do that. Why are they doing that? Partially because they can't afford to be able to live because of housing. They don't have health care. They don't have adequate transportation. They don't have proper education, because the thing is that we charge up the wazoo for education. So when that being the case, you're literally causing an unsafe environment by putting a paywall between what people need to have to survive. When it comes to how the police are viewed in this country, and I know that as a Marxist, the view is that the police is really just a tool used by the bourgeois class, by the owner class, in order to keep the proletariat in line. I know that in other socialist countries, there actually is a very positive relation between police and the proletariat, because they actually work for the proletariat, not for the owners of capital, right? Am I in the right zone, Noah?
Yeah, and it's important to realize that the police don't necessarily have power over the people in a communist country the way they do here, right? So also it's important to keep in mind that just because this is their material function, sort of just defending the property of people who own property, right? That doesn't mean people all view it that way, right? Plenty of my neighbors are like, "Oh, the police actually protect us," and I'm like, "Really? Try calling them," you know?
Yeah, right.
But that's how some people view it, and we have to keep that in mind. But for instance, in China, right? One of the famous stories from last year that I was just going over is there were a couple of police precinct is what we'd call it, but stations there that were harassing certain small like street vendor level businesses, right? Mm-hmm. And the people on those blocks came to the defense of these vendors. And they're like, "Get out of here. What are you doing harassing these people every day?" And the cops went away, because it's not the same dynamic. It's not the same social relation that we have with police here. Here, if the police start harassing some, like a hot dog vendor, we all walk quickly the other way because we don't want to get, beaten or shot or arrested or whatever. They are absolutely empowered to go speak their minds, and they do.
Yep, definitely. So there was something that I saw recently that really just smacked me in the face. This was a metric that
And it wasn't a cop?
Well,
sorry,
I would have got more than smacked in the face if it was a cop, I'll tell you that much.
I'll call it with the comedy. It's not my
no, it's all good. It's all good. We like comedy around here. We need to laugh. So let me share with you guys this. If you guys have not, you guys need to follow this website called Mapping Police Violence. So this is great because it shows what police are doing, because a lot of times especially when it comes to corporate media, we're always told that the narrative of police, we're told through their lens of, oh, we were just doing the right thing, when in reality, it's really contrary to that. And so up here, this banner says police have killed 1,227 people in 2020. 2023. That's a lot of people, right? And the
Yeah.
funny part is, I just want to say this. Everybody is, well, Zionists are crying about 1,200 people being murdered on October 7th. What about the 1,200 people that were killed by police in the United States?
Right. You know, it's wild that, and here's the thing. These things, this image right here would not have been here 5 years ago. That wouldn't have been possible to really find online. What you find instead is all of the sort of first fumbling attempts at a real criticism of the institution of policing, right? So you start seeing the sort of Black community is killed at a higher rate than other communities, right? You start seeing these small things, and now we're getting to the point at the end of 2023, and I think it's going to spiral into 2024, that the entire institution is being looked at. I was looking at things like this a few months ago and seeing that for the first time, I'm seeing articles and studies being done, not just on, you know, the trying to separate communities and say, well, it's the fault of one, what happens to another. But for example, one study that was talking about the disparate, not just the disparities in who was killed, but overall who was killed, how many people are killed, and what is their class nature. And it turns out that white people are killed by police, Black people are killed by police, brown people are killed by police, everybody's killed by police. And those first few steps in the smaller community-based studies led to what we have right now, which I think is just going to get more and more precise and just going to piss more and more people off, which is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. So let me share this. Of course, we know the murders and killings by police is no surprise, but this was a metric that I said, I was just like, wow. Okay. So it says police killed 1,202 people in 2022. Black people were 26% of those killed by police in 2022, despite being only 13% of the population. Now, here is the big one. This table right here. Police killed more people in
What?
What just happened?
Did you hit a paywall?
No. Oh, it disappeared for a second. Okay. It says police killed more people in 2023 than any year in more than a decade. So you see this graph here. It says killings by police compared to the timeline. And 2023 is in the red. And if you look, it just goes up from January to December in 2023, 1,227. So by December 29th, just on that day, 4 people were killed by police. So it was really one of the deadliest years on record for police killings in the United States by police. And yet, I don't see an outcry, an outrage that's happening because of this. Why is that? And Noah, in your analysis, why is that? Why is it not as being focused on as it should be, in my opinion?
Honestly, I think there's a few reasons for this. One, people have gotten used to it, frankly. Two, remember the uprisings when George Floyd got murdered, right?
Yeah.
Biggest protest demonstrations in all of American history. What changed? Nothing. Not a thing. They named some streets after him. Big deal, right? That should be an insult. That's a slap in the face, right? there's like a mural of him somewhere. What does that do to the over 1,200 people that got murdered last year, right? And so people get told, like everything in our society is, if you have a problem with something the ruling class is doing, you protest. That's what you do. But people are finding out protest doesn't work, right? And at the same time, we have a ruling class that knows that it's becoming more and more impossible to continue things on in the old way. So when things like this come up, it's much easier to sort of distort the framing, right? And report on it in a different way, kind of, it gets reported on, but it's not plastered across the headlines. It's not, the demonizations of Hamas in Palestine, right? Which is somehow more important than Americans right here in this country for them getting killed. Because here, over there, we can't do anything about that. Not really. Here, we can do something about it. It's where we live. It's what we can affect. It's part of us, right? And so there's that. There's the sort of need to keep people put in a box where, one, they're fighting each other rather than the establishment, and the state murdering people comes just without, I'm throwing things, sorry, without question on the fault of the establishment. And then two, people don't know what to do about it anymore because protest is failing us, just failing us. They keep doing what they want. We protest, they go, oh, great, keep protesting. Wonderful. Yay, we support your protest, right? And nothing changes. So what do we do, right? I mean, with Marxism, we know the answer. So it becomes incumbent upon us to organize a way where we take action that can actually change something, right? And what is it? I mean, that's nothing less than revolution. You're not going to stop a bourgeois police from murdering people. They have to. This is how they must be trained in order to do their jobs in this modern era. And it has this negative outcome. They know it has this negative outcome. They just don't care because the other functions of these police is more important to them than these, over 1,200 people's lives.
Yeah. I think one of the things that, as far as revolution, a lot of times there's this automatic thought that revolution means violence, and it doesn't always mean that. And if you look at the definition of revolution, the Earth goes through a revolution every 365 days. It goes through a revolution every 24 hours. It's called a revolution, meaning a turning around, a complete 180 from the old to the new. And so if you want to think about it, there have been revolutions that have went from feudalism to capitalism. That was, in a sense, a revolution. And so, in that being said, there are other things that you can do to affect it that also doesn't mean, wielding a firearm. It means teaching. It means helping people in your area in regards to mutual aid. That's also part of the process of revolution too. So I wanted to ease people's fears in thinking, oh my God, it's going to be Mad Max Fury Road and we're going to be going after everybody, with guns ablazing, like, revolution. Like, that's not always that. Revolution also means that we are prepared for self-defense against the state that is inevitably going to act in a violent way.
When I'm probably dating myself here, but when I was learning Marxism, the basics, right? My dad was teaching me, and he compared it to a record, right? What the speed of a record was measured in RPMs, revolutions per minute, right? And every time that record turns around, it goes into one groove higher, right? And one groove higher, and one groove higher. World revolutions are doing that exact same thing. It's society going through a full formal 360, right? And turning around and going the other way on a higher level of development. Lenin calls this development in spirals, right? It's the word itself comes out of the Copernican revolution. Like you were saying, the planets are revolving around the sun, having revolutions around the sun. Each planet has a revolution once, however long, however many hours or whatever. And the other mistake is that people sort of, just because of the way we're taught to look at things, come to a sort of assumption that we will revolution, right? That a revolution happening is because all of these revolutionaries get everyone to agree with their ideas, and suddenly, poof, we will it into existence and we change things, right? But that's not how it functions. The society we're in has general laws by which it's changing and moving and developing. And we get to what Hegel called a nodal point at certain times, right? And this is the point we call a revolution, a change, right? Where the only way we get to a new thing is because the old thing has laid the foundation for it. So for Marxism, what we want to do is figure out a way that we can sort of participate in this process that's already happening, right? Lastly, I don't want to ramble at you, brother. This doesn't have some like pre-formed or pre-thought of form it takes, right? Where, you know, what's going to happen in the US is what happened in China. That's kind of silly, right? I mean, especially thinking that that was a peasant revolution and we don't have a peasantry here and never did. But it arrives in the particular sense. A revolutions are a universal process that happens in every society in different times and places. But for a universal to be real, it becomes concrete in a particular situation, right? So the next American revolution, or this will be our fourth revolution we've had in this country, right? Will come out of the conditions that are here right now and the people that are here right now, understanding, even if they're still confused on things and still haven't learned certain political lessons that they have to learn through experience, the people that are already understanding there's something wrong. Something ain't working anymore. And so we begin looking for answers, right?
Thank you very much for that analysis as well. So I want to share this other table here. As you can see, this says Black people are most likely to be killed by police. It's 3 times as likely as white people to be killed, 1.3 times as likely as white people to be unarmed. So there's that table. It says 95% of America's major city police departments kill Black people at higher rates than white people. So this is actually a graph. And it shows, it says anti-Black disparity, which is in red, versus the gray, which is no anti-Black disparity. And the one with the highest, as you can see, is in Wichita, which is way over here to the right, versus all these other cities. And it goes up, especially starting in Virginia Beach, Cleveland, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, and Minneapolis. So it just shows that disparity as well. So this is a really great website, and I encourage everybody to take a look at this. This is a great resource. But I also want to share something with you guys, because the thing is that this doesn't tell all of the story. And one of the things that I also wanted to share with you guys is that even though more police have been killing people, people usually think, oh, well, that's because of for the reasons that we've known that crime has to be going up. So, of course, police killings would go up at a commensurate rate. But that's actually wrong. Let me share my screen really quick, because it's not going up at a commensurate rate. Let me share this. Let's take a look.
Despite viral videos of smash and grab robberies in department stores and scenes of chaotic theft and violence in major U.S. cities, crime for 2023 in almost every category is down.
Down? Down, you say? Wait a minute. Why would it be down if we have all these police killings? Huh. Interesting, right, Noah?
Yeah. I mean, if you want my opinion on it, it's because the ruling class is not stupid. They know things are broken, and they know people are getting pissed. And so the police forces are militarizing more than ever before in our history. People are, the cops, even the way they choose who is allowed to become a cop in most cities is based on personality tests, right? They have to be able to react quickly under pressure. They have to be able to deal with trauma and causing trauma. And there's a few other qualifiers. I forget what they are. But the problem is these personality types they look for are also the ones that are prone to irrational violence, that are prone to domestic violence, that are prone to react with violence first. So these are the people that, one, they're giving literal military training to, not, just protect and serve, but military training. And then two, they're put into a situation that is a lot like a war zone, right? They go into communities they're not from, where they know no one, on purpose, because that dehumanizes the people they're there to police, not protect, but police, right? And so it makes a violent outcome in all of these things more likely, which with each category that gets fulfilled. And so it's no wonder we get all of these murders, because they're setting it up. They're setting up a situation where murder is a likely outcome. And again, they're trying to get ready for something that they know will be coming at some point, where they're going to have to crack down like never before. And we need to be ready for that same thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's continue.
That's according to new data from the FBI that runs counter to popular perception. According to a Gallup poll, 77% of Americans believe crime in the U.S. is up compared to a year ago. But violent crime this year, according to the FBI, is down 8%. And while the agency doesn't specifically break out retail theft, property crime is down more than 6%. And murder in major American cities is down 12.7% after going up during the pandemic.
We had this really big surge in 2021, and then it started to come down in 2022.
Crime data analyst Jeff Asher says the numbers show every category of major crime except auto theft declined this year.
What do you think explains the gap here between reality and perception?
I think this is only inflamed by social media, by viral videos. You can get one incident, have millions of clicks because this terrible incident happened.
It's a notion some Republican candidates have seized on.
New York City is a crime den. Chicago is a crime den. You look at these great cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco.
Murder in each of those cities is actually down. Other major cities like Philadelphia, Detroit, and Atlanta show even sharper declines. Though in some places like Washington, D.C., Memphis, and El Paso, murders this year are on the rise. Earlier this year, the Biden administration announced more than $200 million for state and local governments to hire 1,700 new police officers as it continues to combat both crime and how it's perceived. Monica Alba, NBC.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And
It's wild, man. The difference between perception and reality.
Yeah.
I think this is something that communists, socialists, whatever, have failed at combating. That we're supposed to be the ones like creating a path between the truth and the people.
Mm-hmm.
But we failed. I mean, look at that disparity. So why? That's my question. And I think a lot of it is, there's a failure with the last period of history's left, but also the media machine. This is all new. The way propaganda works in general is new. Social media, this is all new territory that we should be learning, familiarizing ourselves with, etc. But too many people dismiss it, and it is the ideological battleground of our era. I mean, if the Bolsheviks wouldn't have had their newspaper, Lenin himself says they never would have won. And we don't have that. Sorry to rant at you, brother, but just interrupt me if you want me to stop. But this is what we need to do: is create not just an RBN and a Midwestern Marx Institute, but a network of all of these different places that share a connection, and just as the bourgeois media does, push the same thing at the same time to make those algorithms work for us, rather than we all do a fantastic job on our own in this sort of more isolated way, band together and do what we're supposed to, we're always saying we're good at, organize, right? But that's just me. I don't know.
Of course. Thank you so very much. And one of the things I want to bring attention to people is this is why a lot of us, especially the proletariat, are now mobilizing to do things like ending qualified immunity. And I want to share this. I had a conversation with some activists that were working to end qualified immunity in Ohio, and we'll let Kyle explain what qualified immunity is. Some people who may be new to the channel who may not know exactly what it is, if you can give a purview exactly to what qualified immunity is for the audience so that they can know what it is, so they can follow a little bit more easier.
Absolutely. So qualified immunity, it only applies to civil cases when, say, an officer or any government employee violates your rights. Then when you try to sue them through the courts, the civil courts, you have to overcome this thing called qualified immunity, which automatically applies, and you have to prove that it should not apply in that case. And this is something that came about from the what is called the Ku Klux Klan Act back in the late 1800s that allowed people to sue individual government employees or people that are acting under the color of law who violate a person's rights. Well, fast forward to the mid-1900s, and the Supreme Court rules, oh, wait, actually, if they were acting in good faith, if they were just enforcing an unconstitutional law, they get this qualified immunity. And then later in the 1980s, they decided, well, qualified immunity applies if the law is not clearly established. And so what this clearly established hurdle means is that there has to be a prior case that is almost exactly like the case that you're trying to bring, in which someone has won that case against the government. And the best example I can use of that is actually here in our Circuit Court of Appeals, encompasses Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. In Tennessee, there was a gentleman who was detained by officers. He was sitting down, had his hands up, surrendered, and the officers sicked a police canine on him. And they got qualified immunity when he went to sue because the similar case, the person was lying down and not sitting up when they had the police canine sicked on them.
So basically, that is qualified immunity. And so the ability to be able to hold police accountable in a civil case, that is something that a lot of people now are trying to get rid of, because if you're going to be violating the rights of people, then at least be, attacked civilly in court. People are trying to do that. I see that as, is it necessarily revolution? No, but is it mitigating the harm done to the proletariat? Yes. And so there are groups that are doing things like that, like the Ohio Coalition to End Qualified Immunity. They're doing great work. I'm going to try to have them back on again soon. But yeah, so what are your thoughts regarding that, Noah?
I think there's always some excuse, right? Where what I'm assuming happens is this guy who had surrendered gets attacked by a police dog, and then whatever giant medical bills he gets, he's like, well, how am I going to pay these, right? Shouldn't the police do it? They're the ones who caused this. So tries to go get money for that, right? It's not like this guy's abusing the system, raising some frivolous lawsuit. And they come up with an excuse not to do it. Because the point isn't to get justice, right? The point is to protect these institutions and not begin a precedent where people will be all right and be able to fight back even in a small way. Because once you do that, you open the floodgates. You say that gets covered in some sort of media story, right? Wait, we can sue the police and win? We can fight back and win? And people get emboldened by that. And they don't want that. Of course not. Imagine millions of dollars being pulled out of police departments for all of these lawsuits, because this kind of thing happens all the time. I can't even tell you how many times I've gotten beaten or mistreated by cops because there's too many, right? I grew up on the east side of Cleveland, brother. It was not a cushy little suburb life for me. But if I would have been able to sue them, I would have been able to go get medical care afterwards,
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to stories like this, just realize that, yes, crime is down and crime has been down. And don't let somebody say, well, it's because we had a large police presence. That's not the case. Because if you notice, poverty is on the rise. And on the rise of poverty, then that means crimes of desperation and lack of opportunity also goes up as well. So one of the things I want to direct attention people to, because a lot of times people go, well, what is the solution that we can do in order to do this? Well, just like I said, you have groups like the Ohio Coalition to End Qualified Immunity. There's probably other groups within your state that are trying to do that as well. If you can support them, at least to mitigate the harm that's being done to the workers, to the proletariat, by all means, do it. If you can participate in mutual aid, maybe even tenants unions, workers unions, things that actually help people so that we won't have to commit crime in order to survive, right? But also, there's also programs like this, and I've showed this many times before. This is 10 Demands for Justice. Of course, Nick from RBN is one of the co-founders for 10 Demands for Justice. And if you guys have not, I highly recommend that you give this a look. And it actually goes over the demands. And so what is one of the demands? One of the first ones is defund the police and reallocate resources to impact the communities. This is really just a redistribution of wealth, taking money from the goons that protect capital and make that money protect the proletariat. That's basically what this is. Because here's my thing, and let me put myself back on full screen again. Here's my thing. If we really want to talk about public safety, healthcare is public safety, housing is public safety, good healthy food is public safety, right? These things that people usually commit crimes of desperation and opportunity for is because they're trying to keep themselves from dying. If that's the case, then why not make it so that they won't have to do these things in the first place? I see homeboys out there on the side of the street selling Twinkle Twinkle on the street corner, when in reality they should not have to do that. Why are they doing that? Partially because they can't afford to be able to live because of housing. They don't have health care. They don't have adequate transportation. They don't have proper education, because the thing is that we charge up the wazoo for education. So with that being the case, you're literally causing an unsafe environment by putting a paywall between what people need to have to survive. So that's my thing. Take the money away from these elements and put it so that people can actually live.
We supposedly have a country built on 3 essential rights that were supposedly fought for and won from the British, as 1776's bourgeois revolution kicks the British out, right? Mm-hmm. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? These are supposedly foundational.
Yes.
And it's not that the Sons of Liberty, etc., didn't believe they were fighting for these rights, but that the bourgeois social relations created as capitalism comes into being failed to deliver them. The right to life is now held ransom by giant insurance companies, giant conglomerates like Monsanto that own all the farmland. Did you know that all of California's water is owned by one family? The Resnick family. Look it up. That is wild. That is our ability to have life owned by some basically like feudal landlord, right? And then ransom back to us piece by piece. What about liberty, right? If you don't have that life, that right to life, you cannot have liberty. Speaking of which, we need to, since these things are held ransom, we need a way to get the ransom money, right? So we must subjugate ourselves to some parasite getting rich off of our work, so they can, sit there lazily doing nothing. And if they want wealth, they don't need to get a job like the rest of us, do they? Because we're the ones doing the jobs. So there goes our liberty. And if you in order to have a pursuit of happiness, you need those first 2 things. Because if you don't have those 2 things, you are not free to pursue that happiness. And so you said something a little earlier when you talked about tenant unions and such, right? I think one of the major organizing foundations we should have going into this new era is debt striking, right? Recently, student loans, the payments kicked back in for, I think, 48 million Americans, right? Or no, it was 49 million owed something based on one small section of the loans, and like 30 million of them had to pay starting last month, right? 9 million did not pay. Spontaneously did not pay. Mostly because most of them couldn't. But imagine if that were organized. And we do it at a specific time during the fiscal quarter or whatever round of speculation they're in. And imagine it done in concrete networks of people designed to take power away from those financial institutions holding our rights for ransom and take it back. Not ask for it, right? But take it. That is possible with a well-disciplined, educated, organized People's Party, Communist Party, whatever you want to call it. That is absolutely possible. That is just what I've been thinking about lately.
No, absolutely. And I love it. Sheila B, it's Midwestern Marks. That I'll link it into the chat just to let you know, Sheila. So yes, thank you so very much for that. Because the thing is that, you know, there are answers to these solutions. You know, like defunding the police is, you know, an answer towards, you know, actually having a revolution of how we look at public safety. That is, you know, something in the meantime until we can actually have a true proletariat that is protected by the interests of the proletariat via a public safety force.
I mean, do you know how much money it costs to get this military training they're given? It's insane.
Just ask Israel, because they're the ones who do the training.
Exactly. They're being trained by the IOF. One is wild. Why would we have our own martial arts experts and intelligence experts, etc.? Why Israel? That's a very good question. Why Israel? But secondarily, millions upon millions upon millions of dollars are wasted just in that, right? And I know I'm super active in my local community here, right? And I know our cops, the actual individual cops, are barely paid enough to live on. So where is all that funding going, all that money going? It's a good question, right?
Yep.
Ain't going to the cops.
Nope. And unless you're a cop in the big city.
Well, unless you're like some kind of fancy officer, or you know what I mean.
Absolutely. So that's one things that I, you know, wanted to, you know, tell people about. That's that story regarding police. And so don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Well, oh my God, you know, there's so much violence and crime is up. No, it's not. It's actually down. In fact, let me share this really quick with you guys too. This actually accompanied where is that? This actually accompanied that clip that I shared with you guys. So it says most people think the U.S. crime rate is rising. They're wrong. Almost 80% of Americans and 92% of Republicans think crime has gone up. It actually fell in 2023. An expert blames familiar culprit for the mistaken impression. So this basically, and this came out a couple of weeks back. So just to let you guys know that it's actually down. But then people will try to blame it on, oh my God, it's the Democrat cities. Oh my God, it's the Republican red states. And it's like, no, it's neither. It's not due to that. It's a lot of us are more cognizant. A lot of us, we talk more, you know, via social media. And then on top of it, what's going on right now is we see how police treat us and act with us. So,
yeah. Again, perception versus reality. This is one of the problems of these giant conglomerates owning the infrastructure we do our interaction with, right? Who owns Twitter? Who owns Facebook? Who owns the Washington Post, the New York Times, Fox News, even the fake independent ones like the Daily Wire and Breitbart and the Young Turks, right? These are all owned by giant conglomerates. Right? They're all owned by parts of these meetings of the elites and such that plan out exactly how they need to promote certain topics. I mean, I don't want to get into a big thing, but yeah, we need some sort of public infrastructure where an actual view of reality can be had. You know, I was reading this long-term study of propaganda comparing China to the US, right? People are often told that China is this highly propagandized country where people are all, oppressed by oppression all day, and they eat the fruit of oppression trees, and at night they go to bed in their oppression beds, and all they do is get oppressed all day long. And they're only allowed to talk about how they're oppressed, and if they speak out, the oppression fairy comes and bops them on the head or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
This guy, I believe his name, it was something Robinson, I want to say, but he does a study on this, right? And he's looking at the difference between Chinese propaganda and American propaganda. And what he discovers is that the Chinese people have a more accurate view on what reality is and what the real life situation of the world and their country is than Americans by like a 6-to-1 margin.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's for the simple reason that the Chinese people aren't told that the media is some objective thing giving them the truth and fighting for democracy. They know specifically that the media is run by the state and is always going to give a positive spin to the plans and policies of the state. So they can cut through the BS right away. Like, they're not stupid.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting, especially since their internet, they always talk about, the great Chinese firewall. They're not allowed to use Google, which is, we should know by now, run by literal intelligence agencies. But like their internet, the WeChat, which is their sort of platform for civil discourse, etc., its algorithms are public. You can look them up and see how they function in China. We can't do that for any of ours. And you know why? Because every single one of them is gamed.
Boy, I can't wait to have another conversation with you about this, because